Hello, everyone. Happy draft day. Cody here from the Sweet Life Football Podcast. Going out a bit solo here. Jack and I had a like your best NFL quarterback run a little audible with our mock draft videos here. The other night we recorded for about 3.5 hours just for that footage to be unusable. So here we are. I hope you guys watched Jack's mock earlier today. I know he dropped it a few hours ago, but here I am to present mine. First pick, chalk pick, easy pick. I think every one of the grandmothers is making this pick. I think this pick is all but announced at this point. Tennessee Titans are taking Cam Ward at number one. It just makes sense, and I don't think there's much thinking that the Titans have to do here. Grab Cam Ward. You got your quarterback. Let's move on. Cleveland Browns here at number two. They're going to take Travis Hunter, wide receiver, corner out of Colorado. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you need help on both sides of the ball, and Travis Hunter has said that whatever team drafts him, he wants to help on both sides of the ball. So there you go. Sounds like a match made in heaven. Let's not forget to mention that the Cleveland Brown Travis Hunter jerseys are going to go hard as fuck. I might have to buy one. We're going to move on here to pick three. We have the New York Giants going with Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State. A lot of people are chalking him in as the best defensive player in this draft. It's hard to argue with. Could the Giants go with a quarterback here? They could. I don't have them doing it here. I think they addressed that need a little later in the draft. Not trying to spoil anything, but we'll get there when we get there. Number four, New England Patriots are on the clock at four, and I know there's a lot of buzz about them trading back. Do I think it could happen? Sure, but I don't have them trading back. It sounds like an enticing thing to do if you are the Patriots. Trade back, get a couple more picks. Why not? But I think your glaring need at left tackle and filling that need with Will Campbell is a lot more of an attractive pick than trading back um, and rolling the dice and seeing who is there later. So I like Will Campbell here at four to New England. Seems like a variable guy. Like I said, it fills in one of the biggest needs on the Patriots. And you have Drake May under center. You want to protect him. He's your young quarterback. You want him to be your franchise quarterback. This pick just makes sense. Seems like a variable pick. And so I'm going to go Will Campbell here for the Patriots. At number five, we do have Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock, and this is where I started to get a little creative. I do have the Jacksonville Jaguars trading down, and all signs point to the team that is going to be the Chicago Bears at number 10. I think the Bears make a leap from 10 to 5. They get their guy. It sounds like this is what they want to do. I think it's what they do. And as a Green Bay Packer fan, I'm not necessarily happy about it, but it makes sense from a football standpoint for the Bears to want to do this. If this is the guy you want, trade up, go get him. At number six here, I have the Las Vegas Raiders going with Tech McMillan out of Arizona, wide receiver. The Raiders like Jainty. They like Jainty a lot. However, Jainty just went off the board. So you pivot, you get the next best offensive weapon there, and you get Ted McMillan. Putting Ted McMillan on the same offense as Brock Bowers, you got Jacoby Myers on the other side. You just traded for Geno Smith. Is it a great, sexy offense? No, but it's a very, I wouldn't say very good offense, but it's a passable offense. And if Ted McMillan is drawing comps to Mike Evans, if he plays anything close to Mike Evans, I think you have a pretty good offense there in Las Vegas. Pete Carroll running things over there. And if you've seen any videos prior about me talking about the Raiders, I like a lot of what they're doing over there. So I think Ted McMillan just brings in another piece on the offense that's just going to help it perform a little better than it did last year. Could you go offensive line here? Sure. Could you go something on the defensive end? Sure. I just think Ted McMillan here at 6 is just too big to ignore for Las Vegas. We're going to go to the New York Jets here at number 7, and I think they go get Armand Membo, offensive tackle out of Missouri. Some are even saying he may be the best offensive lineman in this draft. Do I blame people for saying that? No. I think he can absolutely be better than Will Campbell. The reason I have Will Campbell going before Membo is I just think, he plugs into New England a little better than Membo would. Membo plays more on the right side. Campbell's more on the left side. But I think the New York Jets, a lot of people have Warren going here, which it makes a lot of sense. I don't see it. I think if I'm the Jets, your biggest priority here at pick 7 is protecting Justin Fields. You're paying him $20 million a year. You don't want him running crazy like he was in Chicago, because you saw when he gets flustered and gets ran out of the pocket. Though a good runner, not a good passer of the ball when he is moving out of the pocket. Number 8 here, Carolina Panthers. I have them going Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. Carolina Panthers had a league worst defense last year, and I'm going to have them select a guy who I think can come in and just make an immediate impact on that defense. And good on the outside, could probably play a little bit of a Mike linebacker if needed to. I like the pick here. It makes a lot of sense to me. I like Jalen Walker, big Walker guy, and I think he, like I said, just makes a lot of sense here. Ted McMillan didn't fall here because maybe you do want to grab another receiver for Bryce Young. Because towards the latter part of last year, Bryce Young started playing much better. However, I think the more glaring need here is on the defensive side. Number 9, we got another trade to announce. The Indianapolis Colts are going to be trading up with the New Orleans Saints to number 9 to snag their guy, tight end Tyler Warren. With a trade prior that I had mocked, Jacksonville trading down to 10. Sounds like Jacksonville may be targeting Tyler Warren, and I think the Colts know this, and they don't want to risk and see if he makes it to 14. So why not, just like the Bears, trade up, go to number 9, get Tyler Warren, all said and done. So now we do have Jacksonville on the clock back at 10. That trade with Chicago. And a lot of people have Mason Graham going 5 overall to Jacksonville. But if you are Jacksonville and you do have the ability, why not trade back a few spots, get a couple more assets, and get Mason Graham? I mean, this is your guy. A lot of people have him going 5, like I said. It fills a big glaring need for your defense, which was bottom 5 in the league last year. Put him on the line with Josh Allen and Tavon Walker, and then you got a pretty good defensive line there in Jacksonville. Improve on that defense that was very porous, and I think you address offensive needs a little later in the draft. We have pick number 11 going over this to the San Francisco 49ers. I think they go out and get Calvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. I know a lot of people have them going defensive line here. Yes, they did miss a lot of pieces, or lost a lot of pieces on that defensive line this offseason so far. However, we can't ignore the elephant in the room when it comes to Trent Williams being 37, I believe now. He's not going to be there for many more years. But also, you did lose some pieces on that offensive line as well. So I think Calvin Banks Jr. here makes more sense to me than them going defensive line. I think the fall off of offensive line is a little bit more steeper than the defensive line in this draft. So get your offensive line here and then address your defensive line later on. Dallas Cowboys here at 12. This has seemed to become somewhat of a chalk pick here. But like Jack and I said in our 3.5 hours of footage that we ended up not being able to use, sometimes it's a chalk pick for a reason. CeeDee Lamb isn't going to be able to keep carrying the offense like he is. Give Dak Prescott another weapon. I mean, you're paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year. You got to get what you can out of him. Matthew Golden here makes a lot of sense. Could they go running back? Absolutely, they could. I don't think they go running back this early here. I think they go Matt Golden. We're going to move on to Miami Dolphins here at 13, and I think they take Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. Yeah, there's the injury history here and the injury worries. Didn't pass at the combine or his pro day, so that might hurt his draft stock. But when he does play, he's pretty elite. Has all the potential in the world, and with all these rumors with Jalen Ramsey, is he going to be on your team next year? You don't know. It's not something I would want to risk if I'm Miami. I know I know that a priority for Miami should be protecting Tua here and drafting offensive linemen, but at this point, three of them already went. So if you're Miami, you either take the best cornerback available, or I could potentially see this as a trade down option here for Miami. I didn't opt to go with that option. I think they take the best available corner. I should say, arguably best available corner here, and Will Johnson. So at number 14, we have the Saints on the clock with this trade that they had previously with the Colts. And I don't see them addressing quarterback need here yet either. Instead, I see them addressing their need at the defensive line position, taking Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. This guy is a monster. I think he probably is the second best defensive lineman in this draft behind um, Mason Graham. I know, I know if Jack were here, he'd be very mad that I say that. But I like Walter Nolan a lot. I think there's a reason he's been jumping and climbing up mock drafts and draft boards. The dude's a freak. I think the Saints get a great player here and fill a big need on their defensive line. Number 15 here, Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall, goes to Atlanta at 15. You're the Atlanta Falcons. You probably should have taken an edge rusher in any of the last four drafts, and you haven't. We're not going to talk about what you did last year because, I mean, we all know what happened there. So I think they finally addressed that need here with Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall. Talent-wise and testing-wise, Mike Green should and could still be a top 10 pick, but I think Atlanta Falcons, some might consider steal here at 15 getting Mike Green. Led the league, led the nation in sacks last year. Dude's a freak. He's fallen. I could see him. He's one of those players I can see him going earlier than 15 and going much later than 15, only because of the out the field issues. But he fills a big, huge, glaring need for Atlanta. And I think if you are Atlanta and you see Mike Green here on the board at 15, go grab him. Arizona Cardinals at 16. They're going to go ahead and get Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas. I say cornerback lightly because some are saying he may be better as a safety in the NFL, which, I'm not going to say like I know much about that, but either, whether he does play safety or he does play corner, Arizona could use help in both positions. So it just seems like a no-brainer here to me that they would address, the either of those positions here with Jahdae Barron. It just seems to me, like the right pick here, right fit. We're going to move on to 17 Cincinnati Bengals, and I have them taking Mykel Williams out of Georgia. I'm a huge Mykel Williams guy, and you just lost Sam Hubbard to retirement, and you also may be trading away Trey Hendrickson. So you already lost your second best pass rusher. You may potentially lose your best pass rusher. So why not go and get an edge rusher to replace them, either one or both of them? And we all know how bad the Bengals defense was last year. Jack touches on it on his mock draft earlier. They let up 25.5 points, and in an AFC with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, it's just not going to work. Moving on to 18 here with the Seattle Seahawks, I have them taking Tyler Booker out of Alabama. I know that their GM said that they don't prioritize interior offensive linemen earlier in the draft, but that could be the reason that your interior offensive line is absolute dog doo doo. Just swallow your pride, swallow your ego, take the best interior offensive lineman that's on the board, and go get Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Moving on to 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to select Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. Probably your best true linebacker in this draft. Jahad Campbell is a beast. He could put him around the edge, rush the quarterback. Sure, you want to drop him in the man coverage. Absolutely. This is a guy that could do it all. And, I could I could see the argument that he could potentially be the best defensive player in this draft. I know that might be a hot take to some, but I love Campbell. I think Tampa Bay, if they see him at 19 here, they love Campbell. I think this is a no-brainer. They don't waste time selecting him if on the board here at 19. This next pick, somewhat of a chalk pick here too, but I have the Denver Broncos going Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. If Ashton Jeanty wasn't in this draft, we might be talking about Omarion Hampton as much as we're talking about Ashton Jeanty. Omarion Hampton, just like Jeanty, is a beast. He fills in probably the biggest need that the Denver Broncos have, which is running back. And not to mention that they just lost their best running back this offseason. Their starting running back, I think, is Jaleel McLaughlin, which on paper, no offense to Jaleel McLaughlin or his family or anything, but that doesn't sound appealing to me if I'm the Denver Broncos or Sean Payton or even Bo Nix. Go get the second best running back in this draft. It's Omarion Hampton. Dude's a monster. Go get him. Don't think twice. On to the next one. And the next one is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. And there's a lot of, rumors going around and rufflings that this is the pick here. If Sanders is here at 21, I'm hearing that the Steelers don't waste time in selecting him. It makes sense. I don't believe at this point, I know some people are still thinking that they're holding out for Rodgers. I just don't see that happening. I've been a Green Bay fan all my life. If the Steelers and Rodgers were to, come together on an agreement, I think it would have happened already. I just don't see Rodgers in Pittsburgh this season, so I think the Steelers would just go and address the need at quarterback here, get Shedeur Sanders, and just, hope for the best. Moving on to 22 here with the Los Angeles Chargers. I've had this man picked here in every single one of my mocks that I have done. It makes a lot of sense. He's a Michigan guy going under Harbaugh. Chargers need a tight end. Chargers need another weapon for Justin Herbert. It just seems like a match made in heaven here. It's a pick that, like I said, ever since my first mock, I've had him here. Do I think he could go earlier than this? Abso-freaking-lutely. It all depends on how the draft falls. But this is my mock, and this is how it fell. So I have the Chargers going here, 22, Colson Loveland, and I don't think they're going to think much about it. This next pick, I'm going to put a disclaimer on the Green Bay Packers, as I just mentioned, I am a fan of. They are on the clock here at 23, and is this a pick that I think happens, or did I mock this to kind of throw it into the universe and trying to manifest that it happens? I have them going Emeka Egbuka, receiver out of Ohio State. I'm hoping, and this happened to me a couple years ago when I forget what year it was. Was it 2 or 3 years ago when they were picking? I want to say it was 16, and JSN was still on the board, and I was on my hands and knees, and I was begging that they would take JSN, and they didn't. If tonight Green Bay is on the clock at 23, and Emeka Egbuka is still on the board, you better believe that I'm going to be back on my hands and knees that they make this pick. Green Bay has already said that they believe they have the solution to their edge rush problem on roster already. I don't think they go corner because it sounds like Jair Alexander is going to be there next year. They got Nate Hobbs. Keyshawn Nixon wants to focus more on being a corner and not a returner, so maybe his productivity in the secondary goes up. You're loaded at safety. Oh my God, I'm just hoping that this is the pick here, and I'm just trying to manifest it into the universe. But we're going to move on before I jinx it. 24, Minnesota Vikings. They're going to go Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia here. After doing this mock, my gut started to tell me that the Minnesota Vikings are going to trade back. So I'm kind of going against myself here. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to trade back. I don't think they actually pick here at 24. But I do have them picking here at 24 for this sake, and I think they go Malachi Starks. Reason being is, they spent a lot of money this offseason. They, got some nice pieces on that defensive line. on the offensive line. And I think you just get Malachi Starks. Harrison Smith isn't getting any younger. Like I said about Trent Williams earlier, you pair him up nicely in that secondary with Harrison Smith. Let him learn under Harrison Smith. Let him learn with Harrison Smith. And then you got your safety for the next 12 years. I don't think I really need to talk much about this one. Houston Texans are going to go Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. You traded away Laramie Tunsil, your best offensive lineman. And even with Laramie Tunsil last year, I think CJ Stroud was pressured on north of 45% of dropbacks. So it's really a no-brainer here that you go offensive lineman. I know people are saying they should go receiver. That doesn't make too much sense to me. So I'm going to go have them take Josh Simmons. It's, to me, the no-brainer pick. But again, I'm not in a front office. I'm just a guy recording this video in my bedroom to my 59 YouTube subscribers. And this next pick, 26, the LA Rams on the clock. But I decided to get a little creative here, and I kind of foreshadowed it earlier. I think the New York Giants are going to trade back into the first round and get Jackson Dart. Like I said earlier, the Giants have mentioned that Jackson Dart is going to be their guy this draft. They want to get him, and I think they're going to do whatever they can to get him. I do think there will be somewhat of a bidding war between the Giants and the Saints to move back up into the later part of the first round to get Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe, whatever, or whoever they prefer. But the Giants have come out and said Dart's their guy. Could the Saints still, say Dart goes here at 26 or around here? Could the Saints still trade up to even a later part of the first round, leapfrog the Browns to get Jalen Milroe? Absolutely. I think that could happen. But I'm kind of giving away the rest of my mock when I say I don't think it's going to happen. So no more surprises from here on out. Number 27, I have the Baltimore Ravens going Gray Zabel. Sure, I think they could absolutely address their secondary here with this pick. However, I think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry would be very, very happy if they opted to go offensive line. You are, year in and year out, one of the best rushing offenses in the league. And I don't think you necessarily, you're not going to be upset with more another great offensive lineman and more offensive lineman depth here. So I like Zabel here going 27 to Baltimore. And I know I said no more surprises earlier, but April Fools, I guess. I have another team trading back up into the first round, and it's going to be the Tennessee Titans trading up 28 with Detroit. They're going to go get Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. You just drafted Cam Ward at 1, and why not draft or trade back up to 28 and get him a weapon? You still have Calvin Ridley, who I'm still a believer in. I know, shoot me. But I still believe in Calvin Ridley, but outside of him, you really don't have anyone. They did sign Tyler Lockett today, but as we all know at this point, the Titans draft receivers that are far out of their prime. I don't think Tyler Lockett's going to give you much to this point in his career. They do still have according to Cam Ward, fourth best receiver in the league, in Treylon Burks on roster. However, he missed all of last year with an injury, and since being drafted, really hasn't lived up to expectations. So I'm just saying, why not do it? Give your young, hopefully franchise quarterback a weapon here and get Luther Burden. We're going to move on to the Washington Commanders, and I think they go get Donovan Ezeraiku out of Boston College. I think this guy is also a stud. I think 29 is a little too far down the draft board, honestly. I think he goes earlier. Washington addresses a huge need on defense. Washington's defense, surprisingly, last year was third best in the league as far as passing defense goes. However, their rushing defense was bottom half of the league. Donovan Ezeraiku was second in the nation in sacks last year, so it gives you good pass rush off the edge. But he also plays the run very well. It just makes sense here it seems like a nice match, Donovan Ezeraiku in Boston and Washington here. We're going to move on to 30 with the Buffalo Bills, and I think they go Trey Amos. Uh, the secondary, specifically cornerback, is probably your weakest spot if you are Buffalo as far as your defense goes. Earlier, and I would say a couple weeks ago, I would probably mock them going defensive end, but you signed Bosa, so I don't think you necessarily have to reach on one here or draft one early on in the draft because he'll do fine enough. But you definitely need some secondary help. Trey Amos is probably one of the better tacklers when it comes to corners in this draft, and it makes sense here. Buffalo, you get another guy outside of Benford in secondary. Another team like you're in the AFC, you're going to play Patrick Mahomes, you're going to play Joe Burrow, you're going to play Lamar Jackson. Why not give your secondary another guy who is going to help play against those guys? 31 here, and this guy fell down my draft board here. Kenneth Grant, 31 of the Chiefs. Everyone is mocking the Chiefs to either go offensive line, defensive line, because as bad as their offensive line was in this past Super Bowl, their defensive line was just as bad. And Kenneth Grant here at 31 falls down the draft board, and at this point is somewhat of a steal. I think Kenneth Grant is very good. I don't think, like I said, he's probably my third best defensive tackle. He's my third best defensive tackle going, but 31 seems a little late. But the way things work out, sometimes they just work out. And Kenneth Grant going here, 31 to Kansas City, market. And moving on to our last pick of the draft, I have the Eagles going. James Pierce Jr., edge rusher, Tennessee. Did I want to get creative here and have another team, move up into the first, maybe trade for a quarterback, do something interesting? Sure, but I didn't. I have the Eagles going. James Pierce Jr. here. Howie, man, as much as he likes to make a deal, he also likes to take risks. And we saw the risk he took a couple years ago, taking Jalen Carter when no one wanted him. I think he does the same thing here, takes James Pierce Jr. when no one else really wants him. And I think this is a pick when we look back next year, we say, damn it, Howie, you did it again. With that being said, that is the conclusion of my 2025 mock draft. Hopefully you guys watched Jack's earlier. I know him and I, like I said, we talked for about not recorded. Our recording the other night was about 3.5 hours, but we realistically probably talked for upwards of 4 hours the other night, getting ready for tonight, the mock, our separate mocks, these players. Talked about the guys we love, we don't love, and I don't know about you guys. I'm excited to see what happens. And if you haven't watched Jack's mock draft, please go do so. As always, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys to the Get Right Fantasy Network for having us on here. Peace and love.